could certainly add that to that.
With that addition, I move approval as revised.
As amended? Okay. We have a motion to approve it with that as amended. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we can open the public hearing on the TD residence rezone. 18-0096. Staff presentation.
Good evening. My name is Greg Thompson. I am the CDS director for Elbert County. I'll be presenting this case this evening. As indicated, this is case number RZ-18-0096. The property is located in the far northwest part of the county. It's south of Singing Hills Road. It's in close proximity to the Douglas County line. The case before you this evening is about a rezoning. It's a rezone from agriculture to agricultural residential. Essentially what that's doing is changing the size of the parcels that are permitted in that zone district. The minimum lot size in an agricultural zone is 35 acres. The agricultural residential is 10 acres. The applicants are present here today as well. There's another application that's a kind of joint application with this, if you will, and that's a minor subdivision plat to create a 10-acre parcel around an existing house. This process began several years ago in 2018, the end of 2018, and has lingered for a variety of reasons, but water certainly being one of those, as I recall. The signs were posted on the property, newspaper was posted, and mailed notice went out as well at the end of May. The community meeting was waived by a previous CDS director, although there was a community meeting a couple of weeks ago. So there wasn't one back in the day. When it first came in, there was one here recently. I orient you to this site. You have County Road 166. It's on the north side. The area outlined in red is the subdivision area as well as the proposed rezone area, the 10-acre property that's the subject of the application. The area that's in white, that's kind of outlined in white, is the larger 62 acres. That's the entirety of the property that the applicants have in the area. Existing zoning map shows the property outlined in dashed red as being agricultural, and the solid red as being the proposed ARs area. There are a variety of different zone categories in the area, including some commercial, some residential, PUD, as well as a variety of residential uses in the area. This shows the, again, where the property is. You get a sense as where the house is in that larger area in the middle. There was some discussion on how to address the width of the lots, and I think that we need to come up with a different answer than what's being shown. For all intents and purposes, the request before you tonight isn't about a subdivision, it's about a zone request. So does this 10 acres make sense to be zoned in this manner? Yeah, we'll get to that. I think I don't want to necessarily linger on what was being talked about here, because I think we need a different solution than what's being discussed. Referrals went out to a variety of entities. Elizabeth Fire requires fire flow requirements to be met, cash in lieu of, for about $1,000 per lot. Additional impact fees are something they're required as well. The Division of Water Resources identified that the water supply was not sufficient without an augmentation plan. They'll continue to use an existing well for the 10 acres that draws from the Upper Dawson. You can see the other referral responses that came in, including Public Health, Fire Protection District, Division of Water Resources, Assessors, Public Works, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Kiowa Conservation District, and Black Hills Energy. So the review criteria for the zone change, the application request that's before you this evening, is found in Article 3C4 of the zoning regulations. Those criteria include whether or not it complies with the comprehensive plan, and the rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan but does not have any policies that are applicable to its particular review and approval. Generally, the comprehensive plan does not address non-conformance or requests similar to this, with no proposed changes to be made upon approval. Basically, they're putting a line around an existing house as part of that subdivision and changing the zoning that's around that existing house as well. The land use goal for ag speaks to the private property rights of landowners, the protection of ag activities within the county. The approval of the rezoning in tandem with administrative approval of the minor plat will create an NAR zoned lot for the applicant and leave the remaining 52 acres. So it's an existing 62 acre lot. They're taking 10 out of it, so the remaining 52 acres would be solely agriculturally zoned and agriculturally used. Next one deals with land uses and the rezoning request to introduce AR zoning on that stretch of Singing Hills Road that's seen a mixture of residential and commercial development on a wide variety of lot sizes, leaving the remaining 52 acres with the A or agricultural zone district will remain compatible with the undeveloped and agricultural lands that are present in the area as well. Next criteria talks about public services. Because the 10 acres subject to the rezoning was developed over 20 years ago as a single-family residence and no changes are proposed and an impact to public services is not anticipated. Kind of follow up a little bit on that. The existing lot has less frontage along Singing Hills Road than usually is required. As part of that subdivision, if we remove some of that, that's something that we kind of need to address a little bit. I was talking with the applicants a little bit before the meeting here, and they're certainly open to basically sharing the access point, and pointed out that that was something that the fire department had asked for as well. So really kind of looking to combine those accesses so we don't have more than what you would anticipate given the width of the lot and the zoning in that area. So it sounds like there's some solutions to that the applicants are comfortable with. So from an access standpoint and public service standpoint related to that, it seems that can be addressed. Next one talks about the environment. With no changes proposed upon approval of the rezoning and subsequent minor plat application, and no concerns were raised by referral agencies, and impact to the environment is not expected. So that conversation I just had about traffic would be appropriate here as well in terms of traffic congestion. Basically, at this point in time, there's no increase in vehicle trips to and from the subject property as a result of the rezoning. Therefore, a burden to the road system will not occur, particularly if we can address how that shared access might be utilized. F talks about the health, safety, and welfare. Through the initial reviews in 2020 to the final review in 2022, staff found there were no concerns raised that would impact the health, safety, or welfare of residents or future residents. Therefore, staff recommends the Planning Commission make a recommendation to the board to approve the requested TD residence rezone, case number RZ-18-0096, subject to the following conditions. The applicants need to remove the public hearing sign within 7 days. All fees are paid, conditions of approval are met, and the rezone exhibit is recorded, and recordation of that documentation occurs within 180 days. The minimum lot width will be addressed. Didn't look at that condition so closely. But I think if we address that minimum lot width in some way, shape, or form that meets the intent of the code, that will be meeting the intent of that condition. And lastly, that the applicants provide CDS with proof of residential fire flow and that they have paid their impact fees to the Elizabeth Fire Protection District. Be happy to answer any questions you have, and the applicants are here as well.
I have a quick question. Is the lot width 250 feet or is it 310? I thought I read it was 310 feet.
So the existing, the existing lot right now is 310. The minimum lot width in the agricultural zone is 500. So if we have 310 and we're going to reduce that by 60 feet, it's bringing it further away from compliance. So we need to kind of address how that's going to look and feel. I think we might need to adjust that in some way, shape, or form. And I'm not sure. I literally had a conversation with the applicants 5 minutes before the hearing. I think there's some solutions to that. They seemed open to that. So want to make sure that there's limited access onto County Road 166 or Singing Hills Road. That's classified as a major collector street in the Transportation Master Plan. So really it's getting at that more than anything else. Is if you have these two separate lots that each have their individual access, that's going to make it a little bit more dangerous on that busier street.
But it's still 310 feet.
That's correct.
So we end up having to get a variance on that, right?
I think there are a variety of different ways that we perhaps could look at that. I don't think that a variance would necessarily be the best route.
Does subdivision regulations apply?
Not to a rezone.
Well, will they apply?
Yes, to a subdivision. Yes, to a subdivision action, they would.
Can we hear the subdivision?
No. That'd be done administratively.
Okay. At this point in time, does the applicant have anything they'd like to add to the presentation or comment on? Okay. Any public comment? Okay. Then at this point in time, we'll close public comment. And if we're at a board-only discussion at this point. Anybody have any comments?
Mr. Chair. Greg, the only comment I had reading through all the documents is the electric company asked for a 15-foot easement on the north-south line, and I see it on the drawing, what appears to be an easement, but it is not labeled as such for utilities to get all the way into the existing house. Is that going to be shown on the plat?
Yeah, that would be the appropriate spot to show that, is on the subdivision plat. So they have a minor subdivision that would be accompanying this, and having easements identified on there would be the appropriate place for
And
that.
that's what we won't see, but you'll take care of that part. That was the only comment I had.
When I was out taking a look at the property, it looked like there were already overhead utility lines that went up to the house. They're probably already within that location.
Yeah, and that, the electric company simply asked for that to be within an easement. And like I say, I can see a dashed line on the drawing, but it's not labeled.
Sounds good, thank you.
Any other comments? Discussion? Danny?
On your water, what did you have to go through to get your water? Are you using the existing well that's on the property?
Yes, we are using existing well.
Could you please come up to the mic and give your name and address for the record?
If you'll
as Greg pointed out, that's,
Can you state your name and your
Oh,
address?
yeah, absolutely. Ed Taylor, and I currently live at 1016 County Road 166. And we are going to answer your question, we're going to be using the existing well. And the Colorado Department of Water suggested, well, not suggested, they want us to do a water augmentation plan.
Augmentation plan, yeah.
And boy, there's a lot of stuff in there I don't understand, but that's what we had to go through, and that did also tie it up for quite some time. But in there, it does state that we can use the existing well, if I answer your question.
So you get the augmentation plan or developed it?
I'm sorry?
Because the existing well is a residential well or commercial? What is?
No, it's a residential well.
Okay. all right.
Yep.
That kind of answered my question.
Okay, thanks, Danny.
Before you sit down,
Yeah.
just a couple quick questions. You mentioned you're running cow-calf pairs.
Yes.
How many cow-calf pairs are you running?
Right now, we have 10 cow-calf pairs and 1 bull.
Right, okay, so I'm looking at, I read the water report as well, and it suggested that the existing residential would be sufficient for 4 large animals.
I believe that it is, that they said that in the augmentation plan that we could use that existing well to water the livestock. I believe it's in there, yes.
Okay. That was my curiosity. I saw that and I was
Yeah.
like, okay, so want to know how many you're running and you know, if that was the problem for the augmentation.
No, I don't think that was it, more than it was to have a plan in the future for the 52, or actually spell out what we were doing. Yeah.
And then the second question is, I noticed there's no fencing in that space. Are you planning to fence off the 10 acres?
I think eventually. Right now, we're like to continue, because of our agricultural status, we'd like to continue to do the cow-calf pairs. And until that land is actually put up for sale and somebody buys it, we'll probably just leave it the way it is, so they can have free range and utilize almost all, still the 52, and actually a little bit more, because we don't have all that 10 acres actually fenced off. So in the future, I think, yeah, we probably might, but at this point, not until the land is actually purchased by somebody else.
I'd like to get an opinion from the board on what, with respects to the setback line or the property width, what is the decision that we would be making with regards to the kind of language that go into a condition? Is that what it would take, Greg, or not even that?
For myself, I would rather leave that a bit open-ended, I guess, because I think that was looking at that differently today than I think it's been looked at before. Matt has been working on this. He's not available right now, so I don't have the opportunity to get a hold of him and kind of pick his brain a little bit. And talked with these fine folk as well today about it. They're open to kind of solving that issue in maybe some different ways than what had been talked about before. So I'd like to explore that a little bit further rather than put a hard and fast condition that may not be as applicable if we come up with a different solution. So I'd like to be relatively open-ended with that. It needs to be addressed. I'm not sure the best way to address that right now.
Yeah,
Can you
and
go back to the exceptions?
I was trying to give,
Yeah, that was going off a couple weeks ago.
Probably an Amber Alert.
what okay, I can wait. Yep.
Oh, is it a building alarm?
I thought I was hearing bells. I didn't know if it was me or, because nobody else seemed to be fazed by it. So I was going, oh no,
You're not going crazy.
it's finally happening.
Setbacks that will all be handled through the subdivision.
So the workaround for the lot width is gonna be a shed, right?
I'm not concerned about it.
Greg, that's my fault. I hit the red button down here by mistake.
He's got got his tablet on his lap and hit it.
I wasn't concerned about the specific solution, but if we're gonna approve it, would it be, is there a way to write the condition that it satisfies the wiggle or the flexibility you need in order to create a solution, but satisfies us that we've done our due diligence? Am I making sense on that, or?
Well, we're looking at setbacks in a rezone application. And really, the whole thing would be the setbacks are gonna be determined basically going through your subdivision process.
I would agree with that. I think that we're also looking to rezone a certain area. So where is that particular area?
But all we're dealing with is rezoning that specific area. We don't have any idea where the footprint of the building is gonna be or anything. So what we're looking at is just that. So really, all your setbacks will be established and you'll be dealing with later when you determine where the house is gonna go, where it's constructed, stuff like that.
And on the 10-acre parcel, there's already an existing house, or the proposed 10, yeah.
Okay, well, that will fall in, that should fall in compliance unless they're gonna build another place.
There's not one that's been proposed at this point in time. Certainly on that 52-acre parcel, there could be a house built at some point in time. Anything that's, legal in the code could be done on the property as well, so.
Still, we're looking at a rezone.
Yeah.
Others need to be,
The lot is a little bit funky in that it has that big long tail on it.
yes.
So, as you look at a front and what's a front setback in terms of trying to meet that, particular standard, off the street, boy, it'd be way up to the, far north side of that lot. And that doesn't necessarily make sense either from trying to figure out and calculate where those are from. So I think that was part of what Matt's effort was, is trying to address where that is, that using logic, I think that was applied to the Delbert Hills project, and applying it here. I just don't know if that's necessarily the best solution. So I do want to be as generic as we can in that. I think it needs to be addressed, and we need to figure some things out in particular. But I think that if we can be somewhat generic and have that addressed in some way, shape, or form so that doesn't get lost, I think that certainly makes sense as well. I always wondered what happens when you push the red button. Now I know.
They
work.
So what's the condition about the setback?
Oh, I'm sorry. So number 4, I'll read that out. It's the minimum lot width of 250 feet will be reflected on the rezoning exhibit as the line where future setbacks on the 10-acre property will be measured from upon approval of the rezoning and minor plat requests. So there's really an effort to kind of address that in some way, shape, or form, and I'm thinking we can do that differently and not necessarily have to do this. So maybe, just do something more generic that, the minimum lot width issue will be sufficiently addressed, or something that is just more generic.
I would tend to agree, which means changing your condition.
We can adapt.
That makes sense? Yeah. Okay.
So you're suggesting,
You're setting specifics in the condition, where really all you're worried about right now is that in the future, they'll be able to determine the setbacks and come to an agreement, right? That's what.
I think it's the setbacks. I think it's also that lot width. So kind of both of them kind of go hand in hand because.
Yeah, but they do.
Well, Greg, the lot width then is, the workaround for that is gonna be the shared driveway, correct?
Yeah, I think that is probably the best solution. They've already said that works for them. Sounds like Fire wants to have that as well. So Where this tail of this lot goes, we might need to address that in some way, shape, or form. I'm not quite sure all the answers as I'm sitting here before you. I like to have more answers than shrugging my shoulders a little bit.
Yeah. You set a parameter, that's okay, I guess we're getting down kind of the weeds on that. I think that'll work. I would rather do away with the 250 feet, just determine, what you need in the lot, but you need that 250 feet, right?
Well, the existing lots give or take 310, and take 60 off that. That's that tail, and you end up with the 250. So, there's some things that need to be looked at a little bit differently. And I think, if we're looking at that as part of that subdivision action, if we're adjusting.
Because you don't know right now you're not sure if you need to go through a variance or what you need to do.
I'm thinking that's not necessarily the best route. I'd be more apt to shrink the tail back a little bit and provide a, give or take, I'm using words, I don't know if they're the best words, but a deed restriction on the 52-acre piece that would require that shared access. There's an access easement that's shown on the 60-foot on the plat, not to get into the subdivision portion of that, but it's shown as a 60-foot wide access easement. I wasn't sure what that was for. I think having that shared access makes perfect sense. The easement's already shown. I think it's just a matter of finagling it a little bit.
So that shared access doesn't have to show up on the zoning.
I would agree.
Is that correct, Danny?
That's what, yeah.
Okay, so would you like
All there, I'm good with leaving the condition the way it is.
This condition,
That condition.
leave it.
Yeah, just leaving it. I see why. It makes sense. Granted, it's less, but they're gonna have to deal with it in a way, one way or another. Through staff. Yeah, through the next step.
Okay, would you like to make a motion then? Or,
Well, okay. I'll move that, right now, we recommend approval for rezone RZ 180096 with the conditions as stated. And I don't believe anybody had any other ones, right?
All five conditions.
All 5 conditions? Okay,
I'll second that.
all in favor?
aye?
Aye.
Okay.
Oh, I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin. Were there any nays? Good.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. So I would hear a motion to adjourn?
Quick announcement before you do. We do have an agenda, several agenda items on July 5. So don't get too fireworked out. Just make sure you're here on July 5. Thank you.
You're not gonna be here, Dan?
I don't think so. What day is the 5th?
Tuesday.
When you put out the
I'll be in
email,
South
did
Dakota.
we come back with a quorum?
Okay. So
I have,
we got a,
I've had 6 people that have responded. I have 5 that said yes, 1 that said no, and Dwayne, I don't know that I heard back from you. Are you going to be available on the 5th?
On the 5th?
Yep.
That's, yeah, I'll be here.
Okay. So yeah, we've 6 people that have said yes, so.
good. So we've got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, also, the bells never go off unless